Todd Hayen. I am at the end of this horrible illness, and as I said to you before we were recording, my voice still sounds a bit like an old lesbian school teacher who's been smoking for 30 years. So I'm going to hope that you're going to talk a lot more, please, and give and give me a chance not to talk.
Well, it's funny you'd say that, because I've got a thing now. If I talk too much, my throat gets all messed up. That's why I've got my water here.
Oh, no. All right. So
I sound more like a 70-year-old lesbian.
And you look it.
No, I do. Well, I am planning on spending the last years of my life as a different identity.
That's funny.
About that.
We were just talking.
I'm done with this identity.
Yes, we were just talking now before I pressed record. When I was looking at your Shrew Views Substack, you got a couple cool articles. The Beast Cometh, and you're chatting about facial recognition, and I want to chat to you about that also, as well as infuse it with this other Substack of yours. Pick and choose your own truth. This is something that really, really bugs me about people on our side, is that they claim to want to know the truth, but they actually don't. They still pick and choose what is true. Have you noticed that?
Oh my God, yeah. It's like there's a subset of, I call people on our side shrews, for my Shrew View Substack, and I think there's a subset now of shrews that are too far down the rabbit hole, if you want to say that, and they're so adamant. Huh?
Todd, your chair is quite squeaky, so I'm going to ask you to try and not swing.
That's on purpose. There. That's that. Okay, so I can't move now. Sorry. I need to do something about that. Get some old WD-40 out and slather it down. That there is a subset that is just what you're saying. On the other side of it, we've always complained and talked about the left not really being focused on truth, and that there's nothing. It's dogma. It's the same dogma that taints nearly everything, like religion and science, and it's everywhere. It's like humans apparently have a real need to stick with something that's very binary, that's either right or wrong, black or white. And whatever they choose, whatever they pick as being the thing to stick with, there's nothing that'll push them away from that. And I think that's my one. And, for some reason, I haven't had as big of a problem with that as a lot of people do. And I don't think you do either. I mean, that's one of the things that I really love about talking to you, is that you are the true example of open-minded. You'll believe something, but if something comes along that tells you, well, maybe you should look at it this way, you're totally open to that. And I kind of feel that I'm like that to some degree. And, you and I have joked about flat earth and have joked about, a lot of things that we like say, well, who knows? Maybe it is. I mean, it's like, and I just like you, that's why I wrote that article. I get very tired of this dogmatic stance that people take, especially with what's going on in the world. It's like you don't have to believe in something to the degree that you won't even consider. And I think the agenda, I think that's what they play with. I think that's one of their big power plays, is to create this dogma so that either side, that's where this whole idea of the Civil War comes up, and all of this, it's like people that are so ensconced and so deeply staked in the ground with anything in particular on either side. And I thought you could share, because I'm sure you're planning to, about your trip, and this idea of social credit in China and surveillance and whatever, to the degree. I mean, I believed it was what I keep hearing everywhere. And you just have to go there and see for yourself.
That's the thing. Yes. Yeah. That's the thing so that's the thing that annoys me, but it's always in layers. So someone will say, Have you been there? No, I haven't. Oh, okay, well, then you wouldn't know. All right, so let me go there. All right, fine. So you go there, and you go, okay, how long were you there? Well, I was there 3 weeks. Oh, but you were just there as a tourist. That doesn't count.
Right.
Right. So then, okay, so let me speak to somebody who lives there. Okay, fine. I'll talk to somebody who lives there. Oh, but you can't talk to somebody who lives there because the government is watching them.
Yeah.
So then,
right.
at what point do you accept something? Because you're always going to keep kicking the can down the road if you keep adjusting the levels. I think going somewhere is better than not going somewhere. For starters.
Absolutely, it's better than. It doesn't necessarily tell you everything.
No.
But it's better than, because you can cut through the first layer of dogma by actually experiencing. And, it's not even what your senses bring in. It's also what you feel in your heart. When you're somewhere where you're physically in proximity and physically engaged, you learn an awful lot by very subtle clues. It's not as easy to trick you when you're actually there. So when you're there, you may not see the things that will prove to you that, say, the surveillance or the social credit is not as prominent as what everybody's saying it is. You may not actually see it, but you're going to get a sense for it. And that's also not 100% correct, but it's better than. It's better than just inputting through the mind, the intellect, reading things, hearing people talk about things. That's limited to a really large degree. You do have to be there, I would have really liked to have gone to Russia. I have a lot of contacts in Russia, and I used to record there a lot. And, I really played with the idea of going to Moscow and really getting a feeling for what's going on in Moscow and in Ukraine by being there and talking to people and just being around it. I think it'd be a very, very different picture of the propaganda that's been pumped into us.
This is what my friend Nick Hudson refers to as complex systems. Kit Knightley from Off Guardian refers to it as the fake binary or false dichotomy, where everything is being placed into a 1 or 0, a binary choice. And this is the problem that a lot of people on our side, quote unquote, have, is that they are not able to see the gray. They're not able to see the complexity or the nuance. They are caught up in that fake binary, that false dichotomy. And they'll, for example, China is a dystopian hellhole. Okay, so I went there for 3 weeks, and I went to 9 cities. And is it a dystopian hellhole? No, not at all. It's a highly efficient country. It's very technocratic. Do I want to live there? No, I don't want to live there. But I don't want to live there for a pile of reasons, Todd. And one of them, because it's not my home. That's the primary reason. It's not my home. Home is where the heart is. My heart is not there. It's here on my African continent where everything's broken. This is what I know, and it's what I love. But is it a dystopian hellhole? No. Is it rainbows and unicorns? Definitely not. So it's somewhere in between.
Yeah, well, which is what most things are. Most things are in between. I mean, one of Carl Jung's favorite quotes is this idea of the tension of the opposites. That real life takes place in the middle, not on either extreme. It's where the two extremes collide. And, there's a lot of depth to that. It's not so much to be taken literally with events that go on in the world or whatever. But I think there is truth to that, even applied to things like what we're talking about. You have one extreme that says one thing and another extreme that says another. And most likely the truth is somewhere in the middle where it's fuzzy, where you can't put a stake in the ground and claim that is the truth. And I don't think people are comfortable with that. I think people want that. What I keep saying to people that argue with me, and believe me, I have a lot in my family. I am definitely surrounded by liberals and woke folks and whatever. And one of the things that when we get into arguments that I always say over and over again is I say I don't really care. And I don't mean that in a flippant way. I mean that I'm not going to stake my everything on whether Trump is right or Trump is insane and is going to kill the world or whatever. I'm just going to stay in the middle. I and maybe once in a while I'll lean over to one way or the other way with what I write about or what I think about. But there are very few, just like we were talking about before, there are very few things that I would stake as truth. And they're very broad, like love is truth and murdering masses of people is not, things like that I will be willing to stand to. But even that, that's based on morality, and morality is a fuzzy thing. At least Nietzsche believed it was. Certainly the religions don't. Christianity has a moral code, and probably all the others do too, that they believe is pretty concretized. But
you were talking in your one Substack here about picking and choosing your truth. Where is it now? You're getting perplexed by the sheep types, quote unquote. You're watching something by Mickey Willis.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was a while ago. I can't remember a lot about it. It was his documentary on vaccine injuries. I can't remember the name of it now. I think I mentioned it in the article. It's very, very popular. But it came out a while ago.
Follow the Silenced.
Silenced, right. And I think that's where, this is where I do tend to, and I think we all have to, I don't know if we can go through life and certainly not go through, like for me, I'm a writer, you're an interviewer. I do think you have to have some basis of belief that's a little more concrete than in the gray area. And one of the ones that I take is certainly that all of this COVID thing was, to use the strong term, hoax. I'm not quite convinced that everybody that was pushing this at the top were aware and conscious of what they were doing. I mean, they may have been, but I'm not necessarily there. But I do believe the thing itself, and the vaccine itself for COVID is a big problem. And I'm putting it lightly just to stay in this kind of fuzzy area. But I have pretty strong feelings about
No, but
that.
I don't think, hold on. I don't think everything needs to be fuzzy. I don't think everything needs to be nuanced and complex. I think there are some things that, in my view, are very obviously binary, like the vaccine.
Yeah, you can say that. Whether that's actually true or not, we don't really know. Just
Right,
like I
right.
said, I mean, maybe we're in the Matrix and none of this is real. And so then you can, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can come up with all kinds of things. But this is what I was saying, though, is that I think that we as human beings have to do what you just said. I think we have to see some things as binary. And because I don't think we could function as a physical being in the world. Maybe if we were a spirit or something that could just observe, we could like say, well, that's, there's nothing definite about that. But I think just to function, certainly doing what you and I do, like my writing. Now, my therapy is a little different. You got to constantly stay in the gray there because you don't know who you're dealing with, and you can't be contrary too far with some things. Some things you can, like if somebody's a pedophile or something you're working with, you obviously have a pretty binary way of dealing with that. To some degree, certainly not as much as say the prison system would, but as a therapist you might. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. But the thing with Willis's, the comment I was making was that it was so clear to me in watching that, even before watching it, that the vaccines cause serious physiological issues. serious ones, and enough of them in the percentage and the statistics that it should be a much bigger concern than it obviously is. Okay, I mean, that's a really simple statement. And yet people will watch that that documentary and will not believe that. They will choose their own truth, which is that none of that's true, that the vaccine saved millions of lives, and if we didn't have it, we just have to put up with a couple here and there of people that may be damaged by it, but there's no proof that it was the vaccine that caused these things, blah, blah, blah. So that's the truth they take and they choose. And it doesn't matter how clear and how obvious the contrary truth is or the contrary position is to that, which happens to be the truth in my view. And that's really what I was writing about. I think that there's a psychological anomaly there that is really serious. And people love to come up with reasons for that. Oh, well, they just don't know. They haven't been educated properly or whatever. And I don't think that's the reason that people will choose something that is so obviously not true as the truth. I think the reason goes much, much, much deeper psychologically.
Tell me more about it going deeper. Why?
Well, I mean, psychologically, there's a lot of things about that. This necessity for humans to be tribal, to belong to a group, to be easily brainwashed. The whole cult psychology, and we've only studied those kinds of things on small scales. Small cults of like 100 people. Or something, isolated somewhere in California or some strange place. And we studied, there's a cult leader and they're usually out of their mind. And it's like really easy to see how they're manipulative and they're kooks and all of this stuff. But in reality, that what we're seeing, the cult psychology, and Matthias Desmet, covers this a lot in his book, The Psychology of Totalitarianism. And he calls it mass formation. And that there is a mass effect that is very, very deep. And we're talking about dogma. I mean, that's where the dogma of that polarity and that side is so prominent, that there is some kind of truth set. There are people like government, presidents, obviously not the current president, of the United States, and that's where you run into these kinds of things. Well, why isn't he part of that whole dogmatic belief that they can do no wrong? That because Biden obviously was in that position, and any of the other Democratic presidents were. So the Democratic Party as the cult. Actually, if we're even considering that this is a viable explanation for it, and I'm not saying, just officially, I'm not saying the Democratic Party is a cult, although I think both parties have cultish elements to them on their extremes, because they listen to whatever they've decided is the chief and the grand poobah of that group. And nothing will get in the way of that. There isn't anything. And, we've seen stories about this for years, that even if the leader admits that they're a criminal or whatever, people will still stay with them. Like Stalin was like that. He never really admitted he was a bad guy, but it was very clear after he died and, Khrushchev came along and said, hey guys, Stalin was whacked. And look at all that he did. And there's a huge group of people, and there still are in Russia, that still believe Stalin was the greatest thing. Even though there's famous stories about people whose partners were taken off and executed by Stalin, who still believe him and believe that he was a great leader. So it's humans are weird. I don't hear you. I think you're muted or something.
Sorry, I had my microphone on
okay.
mute. One sec. You're talking about Stalin. Now, when I was in China, we were chatting about Mao.
Uh-huh.
So there's an overlap here.
Yeah.
Mao is still revered by a lot of Chinese people.
I'll bet.
In the same way that Stalin is revered by a lot of Russians. Now, The question you have to ask yourself, Todd, is why? Are they simply crazy? Or is there something perhaps that we don't know?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I do think that both of those leaders, even Stalin, and Trump may end up like this, although I don't think Trump is murderous the same way Stalin or Mao was. I mean, some people believe he is, obviously, but I don't think he is. But anyhow, they'll end up seeing him, seeing all the good things that he presented, and you can see that in Mao, and what he originally did with China to bring it into this consolidated ideology and whatnot. I mean, his big downfall, in my opinion, was the Cultural Revolution. But he was waning at the beginning of that. He was starting to lose some of his power, and he set that all up in order to regain it. And that's where, and if anybody out there is much more versed on the history of China, they can, because I don't know that much, but the little bit that I know, or the little bit that I've read. But yeah, I think when I say it's a little bit of both, a little bit of crazy and a little bit of what we don't know, we obviously didn't live through that. And we don't know the power those men had on the people and on the people's hearts. I think it's very unusual for someone of that power and that much ability to radically change things, to bring a country. If you look at, of course, Stalin came after the war, or it came before the war, because he came right after Lenin died in 1924. So he didn't really do that much that would improve the lives of Russians. Well, that's not true. He did, but in weird ways, with what he did in Ukraine with the grain and all of that. I mean, that was really the industrial period of that country. And they were preparing for war once Hitler came along, which wasn't too much later after that, 10, 15 years, where they would know what was going on there. And they were buddies at first, obviously. But anyhow, we don't know, because we weren't there and we didn't experience the positive aspects of those leaders. So I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Well, no, because I don't suppose there is an answer.
No.
I think it falls again into that complex systems way of thinking. I mean, I've got a friend who grew up in China in the 80s, and he remembers the hard times, the food rations, and his parents grew up under Mao, and they certainly didn't like Mao. And yet there are others who did grow up under Mao who did like Mao. Let's bring it home. Here in South Africa, there are many who grew up, like myself, during apartheid, and have fond memories. I have good memories of living through apartheid. I don't look back at apartheid and go, it was just this tragic system. You could argue, yes, well, because I was on the side that benefited. That might be the case, but it is nonetheless true that I don't have a bad memory of it. Mm-hmm. Whereas there are many black South Africans who do have bad, and funny enough, there are many black South Africans who do have good memories also of apartheid, because they compare where the country is now to where it was then. So it's not a binary thing. It's not 1 or 0.
Well, certainly when you're dealing with individuals, our individual experience can be radically different, depending, just even if we're exposed to the same environment. We can have completely different takes, completely different, unconscious systems built around the environment that's radically different due to a lot of things. I mean, the way we were raised, you could even go into the collective and say past life stuff or whatever. But there's, when you're talking about the individual, and again, this is a good point you're making, because I think as we mingle with people in our world, we're dealing with most people, and I would say like quite a large percentage, that know almost nothing about what's really going on. They know what the news tells them. They know what social media tells them. They know what their friends tell them. And when you consider that most of those sources are corrupt, as it is, obviously the mainstream is very, very left-oriented and biased, very much against Trump and the Republicans and the conservatives. I mean, almost to a point where, if you want to go all the way down that rabbit hole, to the point where it's entirely made up of negative propaganda toward those other things. So anytime Trump ever does anything, just to use him as an example, he's not the only one, it's spun to, he could do anything and it will be spun to be a negative. I mean, like this whole thing with Gaza and Israel, I don't see that in the news. I mean, it is big news, so you see a headline here and there, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody's like saying, wow, can you believe how great that is that Trump did? And I think if people were not biased, they would acknowledge the positive aspect of what he's done. But because it goes against their bias, they don't even want to see it. They'll admit it happened because there's nothing, but they'll spin it. They'll say, oh, well, that's just his narcissism, that he's like going off saying that he's a peace lover and all that's just all bullshit. They'll say something like that if they say anything. But they just don't know. They don't have information that is not subject to the spin. And that's why guys on ours, or people on ours, I won't say guys because it's everybody, on our side of it are always talking about do your research. I mean, that's like the line that you hear. And it's like, well, where do you do your research? Do you go to the New York Times, Washington Post, NPR? No, that's not where you're going to find the truth, But then just like you said earlier, where we then get exposed to the extreme on the other side, like the moment Charlie Kirk was assassinated, this deeper place was saying it was all fabricated, that he's still alive, that he wasn't really killed. And, to do that as quickly as they did, I mean, they could be right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not, but to do it as quickly as they did, I mean, this was literally the day of, you were hearing all these reports that it was this and it was that. I just don't think the information was there to come to those conclusions so quickly. And that's biased, in my opinion.
But yeah, I mean, just as a segue, that whole event was weird.
Oh, it was incredibly weird. I don't have any problem with it being weird. Absolutely. And they could be, that extreme, just like Elvis could still be alive. I mean, that extreme to say that he wasn't actually killed is an area that I think needs thinking about, but that it was set up and it was all, not a lone gunman, the whole 9 yards. Absolutely. Everything's pointing to that. And, but anyway, that was just an example. I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, we can talk about that.
I don't have a view. I mean, it happened just before I went to China, and so I was distracted by everything in China. So I didn't focus on the Charlie Kirk thing, but I came back.
Right.
And my word, what a theatrical performance has this thing turned out to be.
Yep. Yeah, and that started pretty much right at the start.
I mean, that whole memorial service kind of got my eyebrows lifted quite quickly.
Yeah. And even the way it was carried out, certainly with the shooter, quote unquote, with what he did with the gun, and
apparently there's no exit wound, I believe. I haven't looked into it. I might have that wrong.
No, that's the part that kind of points to the idea that he's still alive, because guns. Have you shot a 30-06? I mean, is that...
Dude, there's no possible way. There's no way in any universe that a 30-06 is not going to exit his neck. There's no possible way.
Blowing to pieces.
That is a hunting caliber.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I don't know if it made a difference from 150 yards or not. I don't know if that makes a difference.
I mean, that's not very far.
It isn't? Okay. Yeah. See, I don't know guns that well, but I do know them well enough. I mean, I grew up in Virginia country, and I did have an NRA card at one point.
I mean, so, Todd, if I shoot a buck, I shoot at a much further distance, and I use a caliber that's a 308, which is, for all intents and purposes, pretty much the same caliber. All right. There's no ways that thing gets stuck inside the animal, or there's no ways. No. It's too strong. It's too fast.
Yeah, and it would at the very least knock him back a bit. You know, everything I've heard, it would have blown him to bits. And also a 3006 should leave quite a big hole in him. Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So, you know, I'm open to that. You know, I think I can't, the only reason why I don't go 100% in that direction is I can't see any reason why they would keep him alive.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it seems like, well, why bother? You know, just get rid of him. That because obviously the culture believes he's gone. So, you know, why keep him around? But, you know, maybe that'll come up as the reason for that. You know, maybe that's a deal they made with Erica.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like he was that famous. That
I know.
That they required a huge show.
No, right. Yeah,
it's weird. That's why the thing's weird for me.
It's all weird. It's very, very weird. It's a very weird topic because I think primarily because of what you just said, that he wasn't that famous. I mean, he wasn't that much of an like a symbol for anything all that extreme. I mean, he was an extreme.
But he's more famous now.
Oh, he's famous now. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And I liked what he said, too. I didn't agree. You know, the old line is, well, I didn't agree with everything Charlie said. Well, I don't. I mean, I don't agree personally with everything that he said because I'm not that hardcore of a Christian. But the way he did it, I think, was exemplary of the whole idea of free speech with people that you disagree with. You know, that a lot of the people, obviously, that he talked to disagreed with him and they debated him, and he never lost his cookies. He never preached anything negative toward those people. He would just try to explain. He was really good at that. I mean, he was pretty brilliant with how he could put together the things he's learned. And I mean, he could quote the Bible anywhere, which is always astounding to me that anybody can do that. But anyway, and there is, you know, just going back to that picking your own truth. I mean, there certainly are huge groups of people that choose to believe a particular thing, and they will box out anybody that believes anything different. Like going on, I mean, just using the Charlie Kirk thing to continue with that example, there are groups of people that I interface with quite a bit that right from the start believe that he was alive and that it was fake to that degree. And I said, well, you know, I said the things that I'm saying here. I said, well, why would they do that? You know, why can't we just stick with it? Oh, I didn't even say it that way because that's me trying to convey them or try to get them to be on my side of it. And I didn't do that. I just questioned the idea was dead. And I got hit with, oh, you're falling for the psyop. You're a weakling. You're just like all these other people. And I'm like, no, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just not agreeing with the details. It's like, is that okay? You know, I'm still a shrew. I'm still on your side of the fence. But just like what you were saying earlier, you know, oh, well, you don't really know. You're a tourist. You couldn't have gotten any information from China, you know, that was true and that was reliable because you're just a tourist or you're this. So you were put down for what you were contributing to the conversation. You know, say, well, we need to think about this, in my opinion, a little bit more because I was there, and people should go, oh, that's interesting. Gee, you know, well, maybe it's not as bad as we think or whatever, but they don't. They have to stick with what dogma that they've accepted as their truth.
Yeah. This is this is a problem that keeps coming up, though, with our side, quote unquote, because there isn't really an our side. There's just a collection of people who agree on some things and who disagree on other things. And
I would say our side is the truth, because we'll go to any side if that's where the truth is to be found.
Yes.
Does that make sense? It's like what makes us what we are is the truth. And the left side, or whatever you want to call it, if they want to come over to the truth, then they're on our side. And if we want to go over to the truth that happens to be what they believe, we're not really changing sides. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But I mean, why do you think the truth, quote unquote, is so important? It's a legit question. If
it's
you
a
actually
really
think
good
about
question. That I laugh because I can't tell you the number of people I know. Well, actually, it's not that many. The number of people I know that don't care if it's the truth or not. They don't care. They go, this is how I want to conduct myself. I want to conduct myself that I believe that, say, masks are something we should wear, just as an example. And I will like say, well, what happens if the masks don't do what we've been told they do? You know, that they don't stop disease or this particular disease from getting into your body. What happens if we know that for a scientific fact, the truth? They go, I don't care. I'm still going to wear one because it's what the culture has decided is the right thing to do, to show your solidarity, to show you care about people and you're not selfish. And I go, what happens if it was all fabricated just to make you comply? I don't care. That doesn't matter. And I laughed when you said that, because for some reason, for me, I can't do that. I can't do that. I have to follow the truth. And yeah, a lot of times I don't know what that is. I admit to that. So that's why I'm not dogmatic about it. I admit that I may not know what the truth is, and I'm open to you explaining to me what it is in this particular situation if you know more than I do. But I may fake it in order to like keep from getting shot in the head or something. One day, if it comes to that, I may like go, yeah, I worship that guy too, to keep from whatever. But it still matters to me, and I think there's a lot of people it doesn't.
Sorry, just hang on.
I feel bad for you, buddy. Yuck.
Sorry about that. I got a frog in my throat.
Prove it.
Well, you can hear it.
Well, the actual frog, though. Are you being literal?
Yeah. No, I think I got an old lesbian school teacher in my throat who's been smoking for 30 years.
Yeah.
The whole question around why does the truth matter, actually, I think is more profound than what we probably realize. Because if you just look around you on a day-to-day basis, how many people actually care?
Mm-hmm. I think people have been trained not to care. I think, and this is my paranoia. I point to the agenda for everything. I think naturally people care more than they appear to care now. I think naturally they do. I do think there's a point that people naturally go into denial, naturally will not heed to the truth, but they may not say, I don't think the truth matters. They may not go that far to actually say that, but they act as if the truth doesn't matter in order for self-preservation and for a sense of well-being. Like the truth is, when you go out on the freeway in your car, you're more likely to die than you are if you're sitting at home. But people don't adhere to that. They don't act to it. They don't say, well, I'm never going to get in a car again. So they deny that truth. They don't really deny it. It just doesn't have the impact on them. So I think you got that going. But with what's going on now, as long as you can get up in the morning and eat your breakfast and go walk your dog, or, go to a restaurant now and then or whatever, as long as you can do all those things, then who cares if the government's corrupt, or if they, tried to poke everybody with a vaccine, or they're waging war.
But it was just a few years ago where it appeared that so many people did care.
I think people used to care. I don't think they do anymore. I mean,
they've just
people are
forgotten
so
about the whole thing. Yeah,
Huh?
they've just forgotten about the whole thing.
I think we're so trained to be consumers now, and instant gratification, and just accommodating the senses. What makes me feel good, what makes me happy. I think we're anesthetized by that, and it didn't used to be that way at all. I mean, people were anxious. I mean, just as one example, young men were anxious to go to war, and knowing they could get killed, knowing that it would be miserable in the trenches. I mean, they didn't know all of it, obviously, but knowing all those discomforts, but it wasn't that important. I mean, people used to be big explorers. They would go. I mean, look at the thousands of people that went and worked on the Panama Canal, and they were pretty certain that 5 out of 8 of them were going to be dead from cholera or whatever it was. And people were really into that. They were into exploration and into risk taking. You don't have that anymore. And I think that is tied into this truth thing we're talking about, because as long as everything's okay, as long as my senses are satisfied and I can still go to the mall and buy shoes and whatever it might be, as long as all that's still functioning and happening, then why should I care about what's going on in the Middle East or what's going on in Europe?
The reason why I was asking that is because I'm trying to figure out what actually is the default human position. Is the default position actually not to care? Because it's a matter of self-preservation. You can't change what's going on in the Middle East, so why do you want to even care? Or is there an attempt by people to deliberately switch off? I don't know which is the default.
That's a really good question. I think the default, I do think, unfortunately, it's related to self-preservation. That you would care about things that you had control over, that there was a locus of control, and that the things you would care about are things that could harm you. I think that's, to go down to the really, base level of it. I think humans have gotten a lot more sophisticated than cave people. Those early cultures, 50,000 years ago, however long ago they were. I think it's become more sophisticated because we're philosophical. We have religious morals. We have all kinds of things that we would care about. And I do think from a sophisticated level, those things are natural. I think that humans naturally have empathy. They naturally care about other humans and how they suffer. They may not have a million years ago, but maybe they did. I don't know. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But I do think that has become considered, consciousness of the heart, as Schwaller de Lubitz, who is a researcher in ancient Egypt, actually, a big part of his life, philosopher, blah blah blah. And he claimed that in ancient Egypt there was a distinction between consciousness of the intellect and consciousness of the heart, and that we were innately born with an awareness of what was important, which was like a moral code, which included empathy and care and those things. But I think the agenda has pushed us so far away from those natural tendencies. And, we still have them. I mean, everybody hates Trump. They care about him. They care about all of the bad things he's doing, like sending troops into Portland and stuff like that. You know, they're constantly, I mean, hate is a really powerful care thing, you know, and that again is also obviously agenda induced or agenda created, this split, you know, we hate Trump and we like him, and you know, there's that conflict. So you can't say that people don't care about things that don't directly affect them. They care about the racism and the misogyny and the whatever they want to label Trump with. They care about that. So you go, well, why don't they care about what's going on in the world from a higher level? You know, the whole globalization, central government, and that kind of thing. They don't care about that because it's not impacting them. Well, Trump isn't impacting them either, but they still want to hate him. It's complicated.
I look at Trump in a nuanced way also. I like some of Trump and I dislike some of Trump. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's not forget Warp Speed, and let's not forget Stargate.
Yeah. Borla, the thing he did with Pfizer recently.
Yeah. But I think it all horseshoes to the idea of nuance, and nuance also means more detail.
Yep.
And that's, I think, exactly another issue is that people are just lazy. They don't want to get more detail.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and that again, you know, I keep pointing back to the same thing over and over again, but I think that's because we're now in a culture that is so focused on consuming and satisfying senses that just like somebody doesn't want to go travel somewhere and explore something new in the world because it's not going to be comfortable. It's not comfortable to know things. It's not comfortable to read, or, you know, for a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people. And I agree with you. If this is what you're saying, I don't think you can have a really true grip on truth unless you're informed. You may feel it, okay, like we were talking about earlier. You may feel it in your heart and just know. And I shouldn't say may. I think unless we've got that covered up, which a lot of people do, we will have an insight. We will have a gut feeling about what's right and what's wrong. And that's what the ancient Egyptians said, that it's an innate quality that we're born with. I don't think it's 100% correct, and I think if it's covered up with a bunch of garbage, which again would be propaganda and whatever, it's very hard just to trust that and to see it. But I think when you feel it, you're driven then to inform yourself, and you're driven to look for information, like going to China. That's a form of gathering information. I would love to do that. If I were free to do it, I would go to all the, just like I said, I go to Moscow, I'd go to Ukraine if I could. I mean, I would go to these places because I want to see what's going on there. I want to feel it. And I'll probably get killed doing it, but still, that's something.
Well, I mean, I didn't see a social credit score of any significance. Do they have a social credit score? Yeah, probably. But it's no different to what you've got in your country. Todd, if you got a criminal record, how easy is it for you to get a bank loan?
Oh, it's nearly impossible. I have a lot of clients that have that. You can't travel, you can't do anything.
Okay, but that's a social credit score.
Yeah, I know. I agree. It's for a larger event, a crime that you're convicted of. Than say something like, you know, buying too much meat or something. But,
well, I mean, that I have not seen.
Yeah, well, maybe that doesn't exist. Yeah. Maybe that's all part of our side's propaganda, because it's working on both sides. There's no question. Yes. There's propaganda on both sides of this fence, because it's that poking, that shaking the jar of the red and black ants. You know, they all get shook And so there's propaganda on both sides of it to get them at each other. That makes it a lot harder, because it seemed like it used to be that most of the information coming from our side was legitimate. I don't think it is anymore.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing.
Or
It's
ever.
it's the fog of propaganda war.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's true.
So I guess people have to watch you, and you'll tell them the truth.
No, and even then, but Jerm, you're just shilling for China. You're a CCP agent.
Right.
I mean, so it doesn't even matter what I say, Todd. It doesn't matter.
No, I was joking.
I know,
Yeah.
but I'm giving you.
No, I know. It's a good response. I just got blasted.
Yeah, I mean, I literally had a conversation. I've never had so much pushback. I thought 2020 for me was serious pushback. Like, I thought when I went against all the COVID stuff, I thought that was the most intense that I have experienced. Mm-hmm. I actually think that what I've been experiencing regarding China is worse. It just seems to be an impossible nut to crack.
Yeah, I would think so.
From people who claim to be truth seekers, who are interested in what is true, they just go, you're talking rubbish. Nice bit of propaganda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that would be really hard. Well, and I know you just said this too in this hour, that maybe your experience isn't necessarily the indicator of the truth.
No,
it's still narrowed down to
but
you.
But it's better.
It's better. Absolutely. It puts a gray in it. It becomes the tension of the opposites,
And it goes, as you correctly said, both ways. When I was in China, I was chatting to some people about being from South Africa, and I asked the one woman, "Are you going to come visit my country?" And her response was, "No, I'm too scared."
Yeah, right.
See, so now it's the same thing, but in reverse. Yeah. And I asked her, I said, "What are you scared of? What are you scared of?" Mm-hmm. Oh, but you see, it's what I see in the media. Okay. So now we are now talking about the same thing.
Right. Right.
And so everybody is talking to everybody with propagandized lenses. And so what happens ultimately is the more that people don't travel and the more that people sit on YouTube, I almost think the stupider they get.
Well, the information they're getting is not truthful. It's biased.
Or it is, but it's infused.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's always a little bit of truth to almost anything, or people won't grasp it at all. Again, Jung used to say you have to have a hook to hang your hat on. You know, the hat could all be nonsense, but the hook is not. And, I think that's the secret to propaganda. I've never read, have you ever read Bernays' book, Propaganda? No. Yeah, I've never read it either. So,
but you've obviously read a whole bunch of Nietzsche.
No, I don't read Nietzsche, actually. My therapist is a Nietzsche guy, and he tells me everything I need to know. No, I started reading. There's a couple of times in my life I've started to read Nietzsche, and I just can't get past the first 5 pages.
Why?
It's too dense. It's just so, I really should, because I think he said a lot of things that I would resonate with, but I have the cliff notes. My therapist will tell me, or I'll read something online about what Nietzsche said. But no, I'm not like Jordan Peterson. No.
I don't think anybody should be like, nobody should be like Jordan Peterson, but sorry, go on.
That's another weird thing going on with him being in the hospital and almost dead. There's something really fishy about that too.
There's a whole bunch of those sort of A-list alternative types who are taking a break. I think Russell Brand's taking a break also.
well, yeah, they attacked him. So, yeah. And his daughter, Jordan's daughter, saying that she thinks it's some spiritual attack.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you read my devil article by any chance?
No, I've got it here in front of me, but I didn't get to it.
Yeah, that's another interesting one to talk about because it like literalizes this whole.
I've got it. Yeah, the devil made me do it. That one.
Yeah, but it's like, I mean, it reminds me, and I even mentioned this in it, is David Icke's position with the lizard people. You know,
he's come out again with that, eh?
I don't know. I don't listen to him much.
Yeah, I saw this week.
Because I know that was an old idea of his. I don't think he's talking about it.
He's refreshed it. I saw this week. He was talking about... Oh, has he
really?
Yep.
Okay.
He spoke this week about shapeshifters.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, I'm beginning to wonder if that's true. And there's something, you know, with all the alien talk and everything. I mean, there's something about, and maybe this is why people used to do this all the time. They, of course, believed in the literal devil and, you know, or spirit possession or whatever in that literal sense. And it answers a lot of questions. I'll say that.
Well, it sort of does, yes.
Yeah, yeah. When you push it into this science paradigm, oh, well, that can't be true, then you miss a lot of the explanation that comes along with it. And, you know, science was the science of psychology, if you can even call that a science. Of course, they want to really badly. But the science of psychology has always had an issue with multiple personality disorder, which it used to be called that. Now it's called dissociative identity disorder, which is something, speaking to my therapist, that he's an expert in and has done a ton of experience, had a ton of experience working with people that were possessed and with evil spirits or whatever they might be. Of course, back in the day, that's what the answer was to any of that. Schizophrenia, psychosis of any sort, it was an evil spirit. And that psychology has a very hard time fitting those experiences into a materialist paradigm because it's very unexplainable. And if you just stick with the spirit part, it's easy to explain. I mean, seriously, it just is, because it just fits everything about it. If you just step over that line and say, oh, well, this is a spirit, or like, I mean, what's interesting about Ike's stuff is that he materializes it. And I don't know if that's necessary, but this is where I wrote the article about, because maybe it is. Maybe there is something material about it, but it's like taking something that could very well be metaphysical, or at least that's how we thought of it, and materializing it with shape shifters, because shifting shape is a material function. You know, you materially become something else. And
he was talking about this decades ago, actually.
Yeah, I know. He started talking about it decades ago.
And then I think people probably just weren't ready for it. So he left it alone until now.
Yeah. Who knows?
But, I mean, I think there probably is some truth to a lot of what he says, Todd. This is the thing that I don't want to say out loud. But I think there is a lot of truth. I like David. I've interviewed him 3 times. And
oh, have you really? Oh.
Yeah. And actually, I'd like to invite him back now that I think about it. He's just a very difficult interview.
Is it?
He doesn't really answer questions. You just say hello and then just sit back
off.
and
Yeah. Right.
But I think he's the real deal. I think he is legit. He has spent decades being slaughtered and attacked and banned and censored, you know. While at the same time you've got Alex, who is having a great time, and it certainly does make you wonder.
Yeah.
Alex has had a few moments where they've come after him. Sandy Hook, for example.
Yeah.
And I think 9/11, he was the first to go for the alternative angle. of any broadcaster, but he still enjoys way too much sort of mainstream popularity.
Yeah, well, we're hearing that a lot too with any of these people that, you know, are considered traitors or limited hangout.
Yeah,
or,
I don't know. I mean, I think calling him a traitor, Alex, that is, I think might be a bridge too far.
Yeah.
But I mean, he is very, very theatrical, and I mean, I don't really take much of what he says seriously, to be honest.
Yeah.
But he is entertaining.
Yeah.
Whereas
so is Trump.
David, yes, Trump is entertaining, but David, I think, has a huge amount of depth.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Let's come in for a landing, Todd.
Okay.
Let's quickly promote your Substack.
Okay. And that's Shrew Views. Shrew is a little animal. All one word, www.shrewviews.com. I write 2 articles a week. There's over 500 of them online there. And I have a book out called The View of the Shrew. And it's available on Amazon. Sorry that it's Amazon, but that's where it is. And come over and join us. I mean, we have a great community, a lot of talk back and forth, you know, with comments and things. So it's everybody seems to like it, and that's why I keep doing it. So it's a fun place, or interesting at least place to be. So check it out.
It's such a small animal, a shrew.
I know, that's what's great about them though. They'll like attack a dog. They'll like jump and bite his nose. They'll jump up like 10 feet off the ground. It's a small thing. 3 feet off the ground. Yeah, that's you know, my sister and I came up with the shrew thing just because I was talking about sheep all the time, which I'll probably back off of a little bit because I've gotten so much flack for it. But she said, we got to come up with another animal. And for some reason, we were talking about shrews, the old 50s movie, the killer shrews and whatever. And I said, well, why not shrews? It's a short word like sheep. But does it really symbolize our movement? And it does, actually, because the shrew is very small but very vicious and blah, blah, blah. So, stuck.
All right, Todd, my throat is dry. I'm going to
buddy. You go take care of yourself.
Thank you for joining me in the trenches.
Thank you for having me. Love to be here. Always enjoy it.